Excuse me?
Looking back, you asked.
Looking.
About looking back, you asked.
Oh, yeah. People spend an enormous amount of time thinking about how they look. Everyone seems to be afraid of looking bad. So let me tell you the secret about that, if no one else ever has. No one's looking. If everyone else is so caught up in their own stuff that they don't have time to look at you. So that whole business about running around trying to look good is almost an entire waste of time. Nobody else gives a damn. Now, that's a whole offensive idea by itself. But it's the truth. That we are selfish, self-centered people, and you don't have to be a drunk to be that way. Most people think of themselves almost all the time, and it doesn't give anyone a lot of room to be looking at you or me. And so, just act like they're not there. Be considerate, but act like they're not there. Do you have any questions about inventory before we go on? You're more. Go ahead.
I don't have a mic.
Oh, where's the mic?
Microphone.
You cracker. I don't really need it.
Well, just put your hand up. Somebody will bring you one.
They want a
Richard microphone.
Hey, the lady in the blue shirt.
My name's Teresa. I'm alcoholic.
Hey, Teresa.
I was thinking about the principles that you were talking about that hinder us, or
Mm-hmm.
and I was just wondering if maybe we could talk about some of those.
Okay.
I guess everybody's would be different.
Yeah. Actually, there are some that are more common to women and some that are more common to men. I'm one of those people that sponsors a lot of women also. And, a lot of people say, well, you can't do that because you're going to get involved with them or whatever, and I don't do that. So I listen to, more often than not, I ask women to fifth step with women. But I've heard some fifth steps. And one of the more common beliefs among women is, my only value is. Mm-hmm. A lot of times that's about sex. Mm-hmm. And so that is a terrible lie. Anyone who thinks that their only value is their availability has a terrible underestimation of their own value. It all falls back on, I am a child of God and an equal to anyone. And if that's true, and I believe it to be true, then my real value is, what can I do to help someone else? You want to know? You want to know one of the best indications of a spiritual experience? Going from where's mine to what can I do for you? Now, one of the curious things that happens to people when they go through the steps is that all of a sudden, what the book says is that we lose interest in our own plans and designs and start getting interest in the welfare of others. Okay? that's an indication of a spiritual experience. If I have ceased spending my life grabbing everything I can get my fingers on, and I have started paying attention to what I can do for someone else, I have had a spiritual experience. And that's one of the best indicators of that. So, is that let's see. You want to know what self-defeating beliefs other people have. Anybody want to throw something out there? Wait, you got to get a mic. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name's Veronica, and I'm an alcoholic. And I'm 18 years sober. Have done a few inventories and done the deal.
Yep.
And it just now occurred to me that I have a resentment about this belief I've grown up in that I caused my two older brothers to become institutionalized.
Right.
The long story behind that, I'm not going to waste the group's time on that, but it's like, things happen when you're all kids, and I grew up thinking that I caused my brothers to be institutionalized by the state of California.
Sure.
And it just occurred to me that it has yet to show up on any inventory. Thank
Good.
you.
Glad you found that. I can tell you up front, it's a lie.
No.
You don't have that kind of power. Really, and that's not offensive.
It is.
That just means you didn't do that. So you dragging that around is a waste of time, frankly. Yes.
If I become financially successful, then maybe I'll harm others like my mom and dad have that I've watched over the years. And there's no real reality in that because I've never intentionally harmed anybody, so I can't. But the reality is that I have allowed that to be in my way 60 years.
There's a curious thing that we wrap beliefs around. And sometimes we will start to believe things that justify our positions. And if I say, well, if I ever get rich, it's going to be a disaster, that's a really good reason for me to never try and become financially secure, because it's going to lead to some sort of catastrophe. There's nothing wrong with being rich. Okay? It just isn't. If you want to go do that, just be willing to pay the price. That means you got to work hard, get good ideas, go out there and just outwork everybody else. And getting rich is a natural result of that. I mean, I was an outrageous overachiever because of what they told me when I was a kid. Because by God, I was going to prove them wrong, and nobody was going to stand in my way. And you talk about running roughshod over people, and I got rich. But, I mean, did I have a host of enemies in the process? And you don't have to do that. I just thought that was the only way to do it. Today I understand that if you start a business and it has a good chance of success, and then you give your customers more than they expect, that they will beat a path to your door and they will bring all of their friends with them. Okay? And that's the truth. And that means that I have to wind up working a lot, and that sometimes to the detriment of other things. Yeah.
My name's Bridget. I'm an alcoholic. And one of the things that just came up for me was an old idea of who the hell do you think you are?
Really?
For instance, of even having dreams, goals, desires, and that it would be people possibly not stepping into their own divine power to accomplish that themselves when it's really for everybody.
See,
it just came to me.
When I was a kid, and I'd say, I want to be rich and I want to own a big boat. See, because I grew up in Wisconsin, there's lots of lakes there. And so So I'd go, I want to be rich and I want to own a big boat. And that was the kind of answer I get. Who the hell do you think you are? Right? And that was from people who were never able to do that for their own reasons, and God bless them. But they would put that whole thing off on me also. And it would make it sound like it was impossible or unreasonable for me to ever accomplish that because they hadn't. Okay? That's just bullshit. You can be whatever you want to be as long as you're willing to pay the price. Okay?
Thank you.
My name is Laura and I'm an alcoholic. I have a whole bunch of them.
All right. Give us a couple.
You're not smart enough.
Yes.
That was my dad's favorite.
Yep.
You'll never be as good as so-and-so. Not pretty enough. My nose is too big.
Well, you got some writing to do. Yeah, yes.
My name's Teresa. I'm alcoholic. I come from a long line of alcoholics, brothers and sisters, lots of brothers and sisters, and getting into the program, working into in recovery, or working my recovery program. They say, "You think you're better than us?" Because I've tried to do the work. So that's a lie. I know that's a lie.
Yes.
But that's one of the beliefs.
Take a look. Yes.
Yes, my name's Annette and I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah.
I just have to say that about 3 years ago I was introduced to something about, the old ideas. And I went home a little bit like you did, and I couldn't wait to start writing because I was burning. And some of the things that I came up with and I've been inventorying over the years, one was that if my children do really well, that means I'm a good mom. That was huge. Another one that happened, and my husband's here and he'll agree, we were on vacation. And I had the old idea that, healthy families should play games and be together all the time. And we weren't doing that. And I was having a really hard time. And I'll tell you, in the middle of that vacation, I grabbed paper and pencil and went through an inventory like what you said. And a miracle happened. And I realized that we have a wonderful family. And it had nothing to do with the idea of what real healthy families are supposed to be like.
Yes.
So it's incredible.
Yes. Do you know, I used to believe that if I took 2 weeks off, I'd get fired when I got back. Well, because the company used to do that. When I ran a consumer finance company for a while, for actually 7 years. And when you went on vacation, they'd come in and audit you. And then when you came back, they'd tell you what the audit was and what the results of the audit were. And I don't want my welfare based on the opinion of some accountant. So I'd come back with this fear that they found something I was unaware of. And out of all the people who run consumer finance companies, about 10% of the managers steal from the company. That's just statistical. And I used to think, what if they think I'm a thief? And then I'd never enjoy my vacations. And that was the point of the vacation.
Yeah.
So we can have all these silly ideas. I was talking to my mother before she died. And I said, I need a picture of myself when I was a kid. And she said, well, I don't have any, but I'm sure there's some around. And I looked around and there weren't any. And it was like I wasn't there. And it was like nobody gave a shit. And all of a sudden I had no history, no pictorial history, because nobody ever took a picture. And I asked her, how come you never told me you loved me? And she went, well, I'm sure I did. And I said, I don't remember it. And see, I have 5 sons and 2 grandsons, and I tell them all, every time I see them, I tell them I love them. And I tell them that because it's important. Because when I'm gone, there isn't going to be any question about how I felt about them and how much I was willing to support them. Let me tell you something I do with my kids. See, when I was a kid, they go, yeah, you're going to wind up like your dad, or you're going to wind up like your mother. Or you're stupid, or you're clumsy, or you're fat, or you're whatever you are. Okay? You know what I tell my kids? You're smart. You're handsome. You're going to have the world by the tail. You will be a success in whatever you do. You are a wonderful child. You have everything to look forward to. Right? I got a 20-year-old that's at Southern Methodist University that won every math contest in Colorado. Is 6'1", bench presses 325 pounds just because he wants to. Is a straight A student in advanced engineering, and has decided that he's a senior this year at Southern Methodist in Dallas, and has decided to go to the University of Texas in Austin and get a law degree. So he calls me the other day, and he's all excited, and I said, what's going on? And he said, I took the LSATs, which are the exam for law school. And I said, how'd you do? And he said, I scored in the 99.9 percentile. And he said, so don't worry about scholarships, because I can go to Harvard if I want to. And he said, I'm probably going to go to UT Austin, because his girlfriend lives in Fort Worth. And my guess is that the dean, well, I can tell you that the dean of the engineering school at Southern Methodist called the most prestigious civil engineering firm in Dallas and said, hire this kid now. And have him work for you every summer, because when this kid comes out, when he comes out of engineering school and law school, this kid's going to be a powerhouse. And you want him. And so this company has him working every summer and all the rest of that. Well, you know why he's that way? Because he believes he is. That's right. Here's emotional sobriety. If you don't think you can, you can't. If you think you might, you probably can. And if you think you can, you have an even better chance. What you think determines who you are. For kind of old grouchy people like me, sitting in an AA meeting and listening to people talk about who they think they are is a really tedious process. It just makes me want to cry, honestly, because you are so much more than you think you are. And until you understand the depth of that, you'll never become the person that you can be. Now, I have no reason to lie to you. I have every reason to be as candid as possible about what I believe and what I've seen and what I've experienced. And some of you will go home and you won't do a damn thing. You just go, well, that was interesting. And some of you will go home and challenge what you believe, and you will change as a result of it. I just despair for those of you who don't. Because you are going to live the rest of your life without ever understanding what you could be, what you could accomplish, what you could be part of, what you had the skills to do. And I don't want to watch it. You know, it's like looking at a slow motion train wreck. It's just, I don't want to be there. I want you to look, to challenge, to have an open mind, to be willing to change, to do all the things that are necessary to blossom in this life. You know, we come into Alcoholics Anonymous with this terribly depressed sense of self-worth, of self-esteem, because most of us went out and engaged in all kinds of things that were antisocial or crazy or whatever it was. And as a result of that, we always have second thoughts about who we are. And it's time to drop the goddamn deal. Okay? It's time to take that information and say, maybe that's what it was, but that's not who I am. And I have a choice in this. And I get to look as deeply as I want to look. And I don't care if I'm scared, I'm going to go look anyway. And I am willing to go find the truth about me. And God wants me to be even more than I am. And I'm holding up the process. And so am I willing to go look? And you know what? If you don't want to, God bless you, but you have my condolences. And if you do want to, God bless you, because it's going to change your life. All right. Any more questions about inventory?
Hi, Cheryl, alcoholic.
Hi.
I got my 1-year chip last night at my home group. And my 21-year-old son and my 13-year-old sons were there. And they told me how proud of me they are. And I'm just really struggling with that. And I don't want to. I don't want to struggle with it, so thanks. I have a third inventory to do now this week. I met with my sponsor yesterday and got 2 from her. But, it's been a year. And there's been so many gifts, so many blessings, and so much insight into how much I really have berated and held myself back and put myself down and just kept myself. God was always there. I'm the one that didn't look to Him. And I have this relationship for 6 years that it hasn't been great. But in this last year, God has tore it down. He's taken it apart, and He's repaired it. And I'm having a hard time with that I deserve that. So thank you very much for being here today and sharing your experience, strength, and hope.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christy Lynn. Hi, y'all. Grateful to be here. I struggle with favoritism with my siblings. Being called stupid. I'm just amazed at how words can be so painful and the paralyzation that it can give you. It's going to be really interesting for me to take upon your challenge of putting these things down. I know that it's about my belief system because of how I've continued to become a well woman. I just struggle with how to do it. Do I write down the things and turn them into affirmations? I just struggle with how am I going to do that. I'm open to do it, but I'm finding it really difficult in how to do it and how much time. I mean, when you talk about victimization, I see now how the power I got from that. I don't want to be the victim. And I've been blessed with knowing when I start to turn that way. Little phrases I might tell myself, that tape that goes over and over and over, that is so destructive to me becoming a well woman. So any insights or information that you might have on that, besides what you're saying, maybe some real specifics, because I'm challenged with this. However, I'm willing to take your challenge.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Just do what I asked you to do. Put the belief in the first column. Write down the cause in the second column. Write down how it affects your self-esteem, your security, your ambitions, your personal and sex relations. And then where were you selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? That's a regular inventory. It'll tell you that what you believe is not true. And once you understand that it's not true, it's kind of hard to continue to believe. Your pride won't allow you to keep believing it. Because you go, if I believe that and I know it's a lie, what does that say about me? That's an odd way to come to terms with something. The other thing, the question about how long does this take? Well, how long do you want to believe what you believe? How long do you want to keep feeling the way you do? How long do you want to be like you are? And if you've had enough, get over it. Start working on it and find out what the truth is. But, if you just sit there and go, this is awful, oh my God, and run around in little tight circles like the sky is falling, nothing's going to happen. And so either go look for it or stop complaining about it. That's not nice, is it? Oh, shit. Yeah. Anybody else?
My name's Carol, and I'm an alcoholic. Thank you,
Carol,
God, for being here today. And
you're welcome.
Opening up more doors and channels in my little brain. Something that, and I realize I have a lot more work in front of me. Thank you, God, and thanks everybody here. I've had a habit for many years of, I have 3 beautiful children, very successful. And I've had this habit of always saying, when anybody asks me about my children, I always have said, they've done very well in spite of me. They have been very successful people in spite of me. So, I have some work to do. Mm-hmm. And I realized that sitting here, the light bulb came on. What is that about? I have never addressed that. So thank you.
You're welcome. Do you know what the belief is?
In myself, that...
Well, the belief is my children are successful in spite of me. That's the belief. And so what you're saying is great impediment as I put up in front of my children, they've succeeded anyway, which is a very nice thing to say about them and a very bad thing to say about you. So if you write that down, maybe you have a tendency towards self-deprecating humor, which is most of your friends will just abhor because they'll know it's a lie. So you write that down, and then I don't know whatever caused you to believe that, but you put that in the second column, and then say, how does that affect my self-esteem? In my security, ambitions, personal and sex relations, and then I would encourage you at the bottom of that third column to say, is this a lie? Your children are successful because of you, not in spite of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right after me, Ted. I'm an alcoholic. My name's Kyle.
Kyle.
And I think I have a little bit of the opposite of that. Those of you that know me know what kind of family I was raised in. Those of you that don't, I was raised in an Orthodox Jewish family. And in that type of family, the eldest son is the anointed one. I'm not the eldest son, but I became the anointed one. And it was because my parents always told me, you're the smart one. you need to take care of the rest of them. You know, you're the one, you know, who follows the law. You know, you're the kid that walks around wearing the black pants, the white shirt, the yarmulke, and the red and white polka dot tie, and carries a violin in case you're a perfect little Jewish boy. You know, you are going to represent the family. I was the one who was chosen, you know, to be in the arranged marriage with the other wealthy family. All of those things they were telling me, you know, that I was so good, so perfect, you know, I was the one, and I couldn't accept that. I ran away from all of that. I turned my back on it. I said that was the lie. You know, and what I'm starting to see is it wasn't necessarily the truth, you know, but my parents saw qualities in me that were good qualities. And I denied all of those, and I think all my life I've turned my back on those qualities that they saw in me and sought something else to prove them wrong. You know, even though a lot of the things that I did in life were pretty good things, they were not what they wanted from me. You know, I didn't marry Horseface Harriet. I didn't become the rabbi. You know, I didn't take care of the family. You know, those were the lies for me. And what I'm seeing now is that the lie was I couldn't accept what they were offering. So I want to thank you for that.
You're welcome. And I have to tell you that laying that on a kid is unreasonable. And that there's a lie in there. But the lie was that the expectations were, that it has no commentary about how smart you are or how good you are or how effective you are or anything else. But that laying that on a kid is overloading circuits. And it's not unreasonable under those circumstances for you to run away and try to prove them wrong because they just put you in an impossible situation. That's sad. Yeah.
Yeah, my name's Ted. I'm an alcoholic. The only reason why I was going to volunteer is I hadn't heard a guy talk yet, so I was probably beating to the punch on that one. But I was going to say, you know, the process of uncovering, discovering, and discarding it's a wonderful process. It's painfully so. But yet, you know, on the other side of that, I tell you what, things do happen that you would not even expect or wonder about. But I can tell you this, that for me, I would have to say in the last 3 years, I was sharing with you earlier, I think I'm 27 years sober, and I would have to say that the last 3 years have probably been some of the most spiritual growth I've ever had since I've been sober, because I'm probably more awake than I've ever been. Because I in the process of staying sober, I believe that before I even got sober, I was spiritually asleep, and I got spiritually awakened when I did get sober. But some of the things that I've experienced in the last 3 years is that I was in business for myself for many years, and my dad was a contractor, I was a contractor, and that's what we did, and that's what I believed I was. That was it. And I had made a good living. I had a good run at it. And about 3 years ago, I decided, well, I'm going to sell my business and I'm going to find out what else I'm good at. And because I only thought I was only good at that. Now, I'll have to tell you, I'm very good at what I do. I don't have to think about it anymore. But when I sold my business, what happened to me is the best way I could describe it is that it was wonderfully difficult. Is the best way I can share it. And that is that I had to punch through to the other side to find out what was there that was keeping me from going forward, because I was not going forward. I had some very humbling experiences along the way, and what came out of it was that how willing was I to go ahead and do God's will, and how willing was I to go ahead and put myself in a position to be humbled. I don't know how else to put it. I'm a big believer in when people say that, you know, that they're very humble. You know, the fact of the matter is they must be, because they're sober today. So there's a little humility in that. But I can tell you this, is that the humility that I learned from that experience, it drew me closer to God as I understand God. And the things were is that one of the beliefs was that I'm not smart enough to go on to the next level, whatever level that was be, period. Whatever it was. And I was presented with an opportunity to teach in a classroom. Well, I left high school. I don't know why they gave me the diploma. They just said, get the hell out of here and here's your diploma, I guess. They had pity on me. But I grew up with the idea, based on experiences growing up, that motivated me to do the things that I did and become who I was. And I had to get rid of that old idea. And I had to actually go into a classroom and participate in a classroom around a lot of people who I felt were a hell of a lot smarter than I was. And what I found out is that I fit right in. Everybody was, if not everybody was just as fearful as I was, sitting there doing whatever they were doing and not willing to go ahead to any length to do it. Another thing was that in sobriety I was painfully shy. I married the woman of my dreams. I'll tell you that right now. I could never have asked her out at a time before I got sober. There's no way at all. And so other things is that living vicariously through my children. If my children did well, it made me look good. Or if someone, another thing, or if someone said something, somebody said something nice to me about a certain thing about myself, I had to learn to say thank you. I had to learn to say thank you. Thank you very much. And so those are the kind of things I think we're talking about. I think we're talking about the uncovery, discovery, and discarding process in sobriety. And it's been, I'm not done. This is a journey. This is a journey. As we sit here, I have a lot of work ahead of myself. And I hope I'm not one of those people that just go home and do nothing. I don't want to be one of those people. So I encourage you to do it. You got to do the work.
Yeah.
Bridget's making me do this, so.
Good.
She saw me crying back here because I was relating to everybody's lies. But I think the biggest lie that I had in my life, excuse me, was I was always told that if I told my mother anything, or if I distressed my mother, or if I disturbed my mother, I would either drive her into the mental institution or make her sick or kill her. Literally, people were telling us this. And so my father was molesting me, and there was a whole lot of stuff going on, and we couldn't. Oh, and my mother, to top it off, was very jealous of any accomplishments that we had. So we couldn't ever, excel at anything, especially if she did it. And unfortunately, I'm good at everything she was good at, So I always get to a point where it's like, I can't go beyond that point because it's going to be better than she was. But the biggest lie, I think, was that I caused my mother's death. She finally did die. That I caused my father to molest me. And because of that, I don't deserve to live, and I don't deserve to have success. And I did raise 2 great kids on my own. And I was so relating to the woman who was talking. That in spite of you. But I raised 2 great kids because I wasn't that bad a mother, so those are lies that I've known, but I haven't actually spoken them in front of a bunch of people. And I've been sober for 26 years, and I've still been carrying this crap around, and it's like, time to let it go. So thank you.
Thank you. You see, that's the point of this thing, to make you think. And things are coming up here that are painful to re-experience. But I can tell you that you had nothing to do with your mother's death, and I can tell you that you had nothing to do with being molested by your father, that was their business. And that for you to blame yourself for that is just causing a lot of pain that's unnecessary once you get in touch with the truth. And as long as you're willing to sit down and look at those things and find the lie. That's why I told you early on, this isn't about finding the truth, it's about finding the lie. And it's the lie that keeps us in bondage. And it's important to look at it no matter how painful it is, because it's goddamn time to get rid of it. So, wow. We ought to get lighthearted here at some point.
Hi, I'm Karen, alcoholic.
Karen.
I have 2 sons, and one's in prison, and he's been in prison for 11 years, and he has 3 more to go. And when he was young, I got married remarried when he was 8, and lived that up big time, and started really drinking and drugging, and so my second husband bought drugs from him, and I still hold that. And I did the drugs, but I didn't do them in front of my son. And so we kicked him out when he was 16 because I found needles, and so he was in trouble ever since. And so I used to tell him he was dumb and stupid. That's what I was taught, kind of. And so this is the second offense, and I feel like we had a part in that for him, going to prison for this many years over drugs. And thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
My name's Barb. My name's Barb, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Barb.
I've written down a couple of things that, first of all, I went to religious schools, and they told me that I was special because I was in the religious schools. And then at home in my neighborhood, my father had a business, and I was told that they knew who I was, and that was all that I heard. But what I went from there was I could ruin my father's business. This is many, many years ago. And having come into the program, it's become very, very strong in my mind that these things have caused a lot of problems for me. And the specialness that I thought I had, especially when I was younger, nobody treated me like that. And there was a lot of confusion around that. And I just wanted to open that up because I've been around for quite a while, and the other program, Al-Anon, couldn't speak up about that. And I'm glad that I could have the guts to do it today.
Thank you.
You know, you got to look good when you were told that they knew who you were, and how crazy is that, you know? And I see that today. So, thank you.
Get a mic.
I'm Joanne. I'm an alcoholic. I just wanted to touch bases on this and share it, and I'm real scared to do it, so just bear with me as I babble on. But I struggle with self-esteem issues, real heavy, and I've made tremendous progress in the last 4 years, you know. But I'm settling. You know, my abuse is not at the level it was. I'm not locked in rooms and in the hospital with lacerated livers, but there's still abuse going on from people outside. And you said something a while back earlier in the afternoon that really enlightened me. It was that settling for the abuse and not letting go of it because I didn't want to lose what I have. Is that what you said? Mm-hmm. And that really, because I sit around and think, I don't like this. I don't like the way I'm being talked to. I don't like the way this is going down. But, you know, why do I keep putting up with it? And why do I keep putting up with it? And I had absolutely no idea until you said that, you know, that I'm afraid to let go of what I have, which is still a very sad thing because it's still abusive. It may not be as abusive, you know, but that's pretty sad that you still settle for abuse. Right. You know, so I want to thank you for that. I think that's going to really help.
You're welcome.
I'm Kathy. I just wanted to lighten things up a little bit.
All right.
I just wanted to share some successes because I'm hearing them in my head. Maybe if I say them out loud, you'll think of yours too. When I first got here in the program, my sponsor had me read the beginning, the forward, like you were talking about. But she also told me, because I got sober in Fresno, she took one look at me and she said, "You have to read page 63 every morning and every night." I said, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah, every morning and every night." She said, "You don't even have to understand or believe it. I just want you to read it." And it took me 3 months of reading it for me to realize this woman thinks I'm willful. plus I'd call her in drama, and she'd say, wait, did you read page 63? And I'd say, no. She'd go, quick, hang up, go read it, come back. Click, she'd hang up before I could argue. Anyway, I share that because page 63 became my mantra. And if I woke up angry and knew that I had nothing to be angry about, I would say it over and over in the shower. I said the first year of sobriety, I walked around wrinkled from being in the water too long because I wouldn't get out of the shower till I could get out of it, not angry. And I share that because when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was extremely claustrophobic. If an elevator shut, I would be very close to a panic attack before it opened. Didn't matter if I went one floor, whatever that was. So, and then I had an accident in that first year, and I had to go have an MRI. Now, I think most of you probably know what that is. That's that rat-tat-tat thing and a magnet, and they strap you to a board like this, And my sponsor said, this is a great opportunity for you not to take any mind-altering drug and just go in there. And I went, excuse me? She said, I just want you to keep asking the doctor. You tell him what you're allergic to. You ask him, and if he says it's mind-altering, you're not to take it. If you go into it, you can always do that mantra of yours, page 63. So I want you to know I did that MRI, and I went in praying the prayer, and finally the guy said, hello, are you alive in there? I'm talking to you. And I said, excuse me, sir, you're interrupting my praying. And I went through that whole experience in and out without having to take anything and not having a panic attack. And now here's the humor. That's not when I got over claustrophobia. I got over it doing what we're talking about today by risking. I drove all the way to Tuolumne. I don't even know where Tuolumne is today. But I went there and I got into a sweat with 15 Indians. And I'm claustrophobic, and I went in first. I thought a lodge was a building like this, and it was a mole hole in the ground. And I went into that thing, and I came out not claustrophobic. Thanks.
Good. Anybody else want to talk about inventory, or should we move on?
Move on.
All right. When you get down with your inventory, then the next thing is obviously to go fifth step it. Find someone. Originally, a long time ago when AA started, a lot of people fifth stepped with clergymen. That was a pretty common practice back then, church priests, ministers, and rabbis. As time went on, people started fifth stepping with their sponsors, which is a much more common practice today. Make sure that you have a closed-mouthed friend that you're doing it with, okay? So just get somebody that's on a spiritual path and do it with them. This is about sharing your experience, sharing your character defects with someone else, so you let someone else see who you are. There is some real benefit in having someone else in the world know everything about you. And then you just go do it. And there's a curious thing that the book talks about when you fifth step. When you come back from that, the book is interesting from this angle also, and that is it tells you what the problem is, it tells you what the solution is, and then it tells you how you ought to feel after you do it. Okay? So in the fifth step, it talks about illuminating every dark cranny of the past. That's every dark cranny of the past. Okay? That means you got to drop the whole deal there. Then you go home, and it says something very interesting. It says, we can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Wow, what a concept. That means the band stopped. That means the committee left. That means you can sit alone in a room and not have something going off in your head all the time. And my sponsor told me to go home and see if that's what happened. So I went home. Now, I think I might have mentioned before that I played 15 years of competitive judo. And part of judo is Zen Buddhism. And so part of that thing was learning how to meditate. And then I also did something called Aikido, and you learn breathing techniques. And so I sort of got in the lotus position in this chair. Actually, I sat up like I was going to do it again. And got in this position, a meditation position, and waited to see if my head was going to go off. And it didn't. And I was able to absolutely keep my mind clear for as long as I wanted to sit there. Didn't start up in some sort of funny business, didn't go someplace I didn't want it to go. My mind was just open. Some people that come into Alcoholics Anonymous think you can't do that. You can. There are a lot of things that we can do in Alcoholics Anonymous by practicing these principles, practicing these exercises that have numbers on them that we didn't know that we could do before. And one of those things is at the end of the fifth step. And I would encourage you, after you take your fifth step, to see if you can go home and experience that. Because that truly, for me, was a revelation. It was an epiphany. All of a sudden, I was doing something that hadn't been possible. And one of the greatest things that happens to me at this point in my sobriety today is that I can have an absolutely clear mind. Not all the time. But if I want to meditate, I just sit down and clear my mind. And I can meditate right here in front of you. That's just something you practice at. When you get done with your fifth step, the fifth step is really about just reading your inventory. Okay? I suppose I should mention, if you're listening to a fifth step, listen for themes. When you listen to a fifth step, see if there aren't common threads that go through that fifth step. And then tell whoever you're listening to what you heard. Because they're going to have to go home and ask God in their sixth step to be willing to be rid of all of those things that you found were objectionable. And so they better know what's objectionable. So talk to them about what you heard. And, whether it's issues about control or it's issues about grief or whatever it is, the threads that you heard in that fifth step, tell them what you heard. And that'll help them when they get home to do their sixth and seventh step. Now, when you're done with the fifth step, you go home and it says taking the book down from the shelf, right? So I put it up on the shelf and took it down. You review your first 5 steps. It says our first 5 proposals. And see if we've made mortar without sand is the analogy that it uses. And so you check your first 5 steps and see if you did what they were intended to do. And then the next question is, I believe, or was somewhere in there, it says, did you leave anything out? Now, I have had to go back and say, I left something out. Sometimes on purpose, sometimes not on purpose, but I've done this a lot of times. So I would go back and say, here's something I left out. And so then I'd 5th step that, and I'd go back and do 6 and 7. And then I ask God to be willing to be rid of all of those things that stand in the way of my usefulness to Him and my fellows. Then you do the 7-step prayer. Now, let me see if I remember this correctly. My God, I'm now ready that you have all of me, good and bad. I now ask that you remove every single defect of character that stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do thy bidding. Is that right? Here's the curious thing about that. I just came out of a 5th step and I think I know what's wrong. Okay? But I don't get to choose. When I ask God to remove every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to Him and my fellows, that means He gets to choose. Now, I've always been a fairly aggressive person. And I think, or have thought, that that's a character defect. That I am not adverse to getting in anybody's face about something that I think is important. And I always thought that was being offensive. I work with inmates. In fact, my ex-wife said, well, you finally found a job that suits your personality. Thank you. And I found out that was useful. You know, God's got a lot of jobs, and some of those are with people who need to hear something. And so I go, let them hear it. And there must be there's 2 things. I have been asking God for all these years to take away those things that He finds objectionable. And I am entirely willing. I told you there were 2 places in the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous where I throw myself at God's feet with no reservation. That anything is okay. And one of those is in the 7th step. And when I say that prayer, I don't care if he erases my mind. Whatever He's got in mind is fine. So it isn't like I'm trying to hang on to something that's a character defect. I'm willing to let everything go. Most of us hang on to character defects because we're trying to protect ourselves. That's, if you haven't looked at that before, that's true. We do some things that are fairly antisocial to protect ourselves because we think then people can't get to us. I don't care. I'm not trying to protect myself. So God can take, I can be intimidating to people, but I don't have to be. So if he takes it away and it's gone and I feel unprotected, I agreed to it. One of the things, incidentally, that I tell people over and over again that I work with is stop defending yourself. Oh my, we get in so much trouble. You know, if I am who I want to be, if my life is what I am trying to have it be, why would I defend myself? I am who I want to be. If that's offensive to you, that's your problem. You know, you write inventory. I don't have to defend myself. You know, I work with inmates, so every once in a while they'll go, "You're an asshole." And my response to that is, yeah, sometimes. Now what? You can't argue with somebody that agrees with you. I just, what are you going to do then? Take them home to dinner? Or I don't defend myself. I am what I am. And, you know, if that's offensive to you, deal with it. I'm not being callous. I'm just being who I intend to be. And so there is comfort in doing that. And you have the same choice I do there. If you think that you're something else and you don't want to be, don't be that. Unless you have a serious emotional or mental illness, you can change your mind. Don't be afraid of being who you want to be. And especially, don't be afraid of it if you think other people aren't going to like you because of what you want to be. Be that anyway. If that's what you want to be, just go ahead. If part of your intent is to live a spiritual life, most people aren't going to be offended anyway. And frankly, they're all caught up in themselves, aren't going to watch you too closely. So it's not a big deal. So I will go through an inventory and make some decisions about what I think are the character defects that God ought to get rid of, but I don't get to choose. So all I can do is be ready to have Him remove those things that He finds objectionable. And then you ask Him for the strength to do His bidding. Okay? When we write inventory, that list will hold almost every amend that we need to make. It's right in the book. We did it when we took inventory, is what it says. And so we take our inventory and we go through it and we look for the harm in the 8th step. And so what I was asked to do was to go through there and write down what the harm was. Actually, I wrote it down on recipe cards, okay? And I wrote down each person that I felt I owed an amend to, and I wrote down what the harm was because my sponsor said, unless you know what the harm is, I don't want you bothering them. And you need to be clear about what happened there, because otherwise you'll run around and think you harmed everybody, and you'll go make amends to people, and you'll just confuse them because they won't even know who the hell you are. And so I wrote all these people down, and then I went to my sponsor and I said, well, here's what I think. Here's my 5th step. Here's the people that I think I owe amends to, and here's what I think the harm is. And I told you last night that he said, why isn't your dad on that? So we cleared that up. He cleared that up. And people that I had abused when I was a bill collector. And I told him that some of those people were pretty rough people in Chicago. And I said, if I go back and try and repair the damage there, I'm going to get shot. And he went, well, God either is or he isn't. Which was not what I wanted to hear. So he said, trust God. And I said, on a practical basis, it doesn't work. And he said, on a spiritual basis, it does. So I went back to those people and made amends to them. I made a lot of amends. And I ran roughshod through a lot of people's lives. And I had to go back there, and I was told that this wasn't about apologies, that it was about balancing the books, and that I needed to be prepared to square that situation with anyone that I had harmed. So I went to them, whether it was I harmed them physically, whether I harmed them financially, whether I harmed them socially, however that harm had gone about. Like old girlfriends. I mean, you can't just go say I was just using you. I mean, that's pretty nasty. And I had to go back to some of those people and say, my intent wasn't good. I'm sorry I harmed you. I'm sorry I told you things, or I tried to lead you to believe things that weren't true. It was a selfish act on my part, and I regret having done that, and I need to know what to do to make that right. And so I had to pay out a lot of money. And I went and made amends to this girlfriend I had, and it was just awful. I mean, I started tearing up in the middle of this thing and going, oh my God, I don't want to do this, and all the rest of that. And anyways, it's good for your ego to go with your hat in your hand and say, look, I've harmed you, and here's how I harmed you. And I truly regret having done that, and how can I make that right? And most people won't make unreasonable demands. So if you're afraid of what they're going to ask you to do, they wouldn't spend a lot of time doing that. The worst one that I made was my first wife. I told her I would meet her because I needed to make amends, and could I make an appointment with her, and I met her in a village inn, and 2 hours later she was still telling me why I had harmed her, which got a little obsessive. And I said, I have to go. I actually hadn't expected it to last that long. And I said, I have to go, but I'll get back to you. And she said, all right. And I went to my sponsor and I said, how much of that do I have to listen to? And he said, tell her that you're willing to get together with her for another hour, and for her to consider what she wants to tell you in that hour, but at the end of the hour, that's the end of it. So I went back and she took the whole hour. And, I listened to that as politely as I could. And I was trying to clean up my side of the street. And I said, I appreciate you telling me everything. If there's anything I need to get square with you, anything further I need to do, I will do it. But that's the end of it there. And just moved on. I don't know. So I did a lot of really bad things to people. And I went around and took care of it all. And I don't owe amends to anybody today. And I don't have to cross the street to avoid anyone. So there's a freedom in that. When my financial amends were paid off, there was incredible freedom in that. All of a sudden, I didn't owe anybody anything. I mean, I had long since made all the other amends, but it took years to make the financial amends. But when that was done, that was done. I can tell you, I used to get into debt because I was efficient at it. I ran a loan company. I knew how to borrow money. And once I got out of debt, I mean, that's like living on the hinges of hell. When you got all that debt. And I went to my uncle, who was a banker, and I said, that was my Uncle Leif, and I said, I need to talk to you about getting out of debt. And he said, show me what you're talking about. And I showed it to him, and he said, my God, how'd you get that far in debt? And I said, I'm an alcoholic, and I needed to buy alcohol. And I kept robbing Peter to pay Paul, and I was manipulating all this stuff. I was kiting checks. I was doing all kinds of stuff. And I said, so how do I get out of debt? And he said, it's fairly easy. And I said, good. And I said, what do I do? And he said, you start paying now and you pay till it's paid. That was not the answer I was looking for either. But that's what I did. And then about 3 years later, I was out of debt. I've never been back in debt. I own a company today that has zero debt. I have never borrowed a penny for that company. And it's worth a lot. So, we learned to live by principles in here. I learned that I didn't want creditors calling me. I just don't like it. I don't want somebody hammering me. I used to do that. And one of the funniest things that happened to me is I owned a screen printing business, and these guys had sold us something, and they had misrepresented, at least in my mind, what they had sold us. So I told them I wasn't going to pay for it, and they could come and pick up their stuff. And this guy was from Kansas City. So he shows up at the front door of my manufacturing plant with a goon. And I'm going, deja vu. And I'm going, retribution. Oh my. This is what goes around comes around. And this goon came up and was punching me in the chest with his finger going, we need the money for this. And I said, you stick that finger in my chest again, I'm going to break it off and shove it up your ass. Yeah, it was. And they looked at me like, this doesn't seem to work. And I didn't want to say, I was doing this 20 years ago. This isn't. And I said, you misrepresented your product, and if you'd like to take it with you, you're more than welcome to. So they did. And then one of my friends was the cop in charge of District 3 in Denver, which is where my factory was. And I called this guy up and I said, John, you know my history. And he goes, yeah. And I said, I just had a goon show up. I had just had this gorilla show up at my front door and started threatening me to do this and that. And he said, really? Did you get his license number? And I said, yeah, I did. And he said, let me take care of it. And they arrested these guys on the way out of town for intimidation. and said, we're not going to charge you with this, but if you ever show up in Denver again, we're going to acquaint you with the inside of the Denver County Jail. So welcome back anytime you'd like. And that was the end of it. Isn't that amazing? Funny. So some amends are extremely difficult. I know people that had stolen a lot of money, and done really bad crimes, were subject to some serious prison time if they went and made them, and they went and made amends anyway. And you have to be able to go anywhere and do anything. And if that's a scary prospect, it was for me too. But you're either going to do it or you're not. And God either is or He is. So you just go make them and try and find a day in your life where you don't have to go and do that to anybody anymore. And it's really worth the effort. All right, so now we're gonna stop here. There's an open meeting tonight between 8 and 9. There's a drawing at 5:15, which is going to actually it'll be right around 5, I suppose, because we're going to discontinue this now. And then tomorrow morning, we're going to talk about 10, 11, and 12. And we're only going to talk about it for about an hour. But I want you to know how important the 10th step is. Because there you can kind of unburden yourself. Basically, you can tell someone else what's going on with you, and you can kind of clean things up as you go along. It's basically a very underused step in Alcoholics Anonymous, and one of the most important. And I'm going to talk to you about having 10-step buddies. People that you can talk to anytime about what's going on with you. It's extremely important. So I hope you have a great evening, and I hope to see most of you tomorrow morning. And thanks for being such good listeners.